Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. This is the post-fight review for the Bakhodir Jalolov vs Kristaps Zutis fight, which was in Tashkent in Uzbekistan on the Akhmadaliev undercard. So this was always going to be a win for Bakhodir Jalolov. The question was, how good was he going to look? And when the commentators were really trying to give it the big one for Zutis and talk him up early on, I thought, yep, this is going to be a real mismatch, and so it proved. So he was probably lucky to get out of the first round, actually. Even though he started pressing forward early on, as soon as he tasted a little bit of the power from Jalolov, he was on his bike, he was backing up, trying to keep out of the way, and he was completely ineffective in this fight against the 6'7" Uzbek Bakhodir Jalolov, known as, who would have thought, the Big Uzbek. So the range was an issue for Zutis right from the beginning, just unable to bridge the gap, and when he tasted the power, he didn't really want to sort of take too many risks to jump in and sort of explore what he could actually do. So he was getting picked off at will through round one, jabs, left hands and right hands round the guard, and you sort of thought, yeah, this is going to be over quickly. And so it was in round two, and it was actually the right hook, which was a really good punch for Bakhodir Jalolov, who was noted for his left hand, that long left hand, straight left hand, but it was the right hook that just absolutely sort of had Zutis in all sorts of trouble, dropped him twice early in the round, and the ref didn't like what he saw, waved it off pretty quickly actually the second time. He got dropped, and I didn't necessarily think he was hurt beyond belief because he still looked clear-eyed on the ground, but he wasn't protesting. And bear in mind, this was effectively an opponent that was drafted in at the last minute. Sort of even in fight week, he didn't have an opponent listed. So Kristaps Zutis, they've dug him up from somewhere just effectively to be some activity for Bakhodir Jalolov, a lamb to the slaughter. So it's hard to know really what to sort of take out of this fight, apart from it's a little bit of activity, and you wouldn't even really class it as a sparring session because it wasn't competitive at all, and Zutis was very cautious, very wary of anything that Bakhodir Jalolov was doing, and most of the time Jalolov was just measuring him, looking for a way to sort of break through the guard, and sometimes he'd just throw looping punches around it. So this was what it was to some extent, 8-0, and I guess it's the question, and there's a couple of questions actually. Where to for Bakhodir Jalolov? Because for most heavyweight boxing fans, they've seen relatively little of him. So he's co-promoted, or promoted I should say, by Lou DiBella. But he's got this goal of going to the Olympics, and part of that is Uzbekistan would like him to be at the Olympics. He was an Olympian in 2016. He carried the flag in that Olympics for them. So he is a big name, a big deal in Uzbekistan, and they obviously want him to go for glory again. So he would have been at the Tokyo Olympics in 2020 had they gone ahead, and he did drop back down to the amateurs in 2019 and won the World Championship. So the pro career has been a little bit of sort of a stop-start effort, and the pandemic hasn't really helped it. So he was back in the ring this past December, I should say, for a quick sort of tune-up, a little bit of activity. That was the 7th pro fight, but largely so far he's been operating in somewhat obscurity, apart from grabbing those headlines when he won the World Championships. He's effectively been on cards that have been club shows in the United States. You sort of see a bit of a phone highlight, shaky sort of highlights, that sort of thing of his fight so far. So being on this card, this Akhmadaliev card, which was in Tashkent, Uzbekistan, it was, I guess, for him, actually the biggest exposure he's had so far in his pro career. And it's not like he disappointed, but, the opponent was so poor, it was hard to really impress either. I mean, he got the job done, but a couple of things that I saw, I thought, at a higher level could be a bit of an issue. Remembering he's 6'7", he's a big guy. And I think guys who are sort of 6'4" or less may struggle sort of closing the distance, closing the range against that 80-plus inch reach. But also, Jalolov does have a bit of a tendency to sort of hang that chin out in the air. And he doesn't necessarily move his head all that much. I mean, maybe for this opponent he didn't feel he had to, but certainly a little bit risky going forward if that is to persist, I guess. But then what next? I mean, Potentially it is the Olympics, should they be going ahead, and apparently the Olympics will be going ahead, but we will have to see. They were looking at obviously a delayed start last year, and now they were pushed back a year. We'll have to see. Obviously the pandemic has thrown a lot of things sort of asunder at this point, but he would be one of the favourites to win the gold medal, and I know not everyone agrees with him sort of dropping down to the amateurs and sort of yo-yoing between the amateurs and the pros, and he's done that again. He is intending to go to the Olympics and try to seek gold for his country, but yeah, it's not exactly helping him with the broader profile. Neither is the sort of fighting in obscurity for the most part. So there's kind of a little bit of the how are they going to sort of push this guy, promote him. The what next is certainly a question, because he is a talent and one guy I think who can do something, you know, in the heavyweight division. Certainly you can't teach height. He's got ample enough of it, 6'7". He's got some good tools, good skills. He moves well for a big man. A few questions maybe on the defensive end. I mean, if he's facing some of these bigger guys, some of his flaws may get exposed, but you know, it's early. He can still fix these things. 26 years old. There's a lot to like, and at the end of this video, there was a little sort of mini documentary that I did in the lockdown of March 2020. One of those guys that I was like, yeah, it'd be good to sort of delve into some of his past, where he's come from, where he's going, etc. So do check that out. But yeah, I like what I see from Bakhodir Jalolov. I'm just not so sure what they're really going to be doing with him. How are they really going to push and promote him? But what do you make of it all? Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.